much for joining Senator Markey, me, and community activists today to discuss this urgent issue. We really appreciate you all joining us this morning. We have a crisis of energy poverty in our country. No one should be forced to weather freezing temperatures in their own home because they cannot pay for heat. No one should have to suffer from heat stroke because they can't afford an air conditioning bill in the summer. And no one should have to turn on a space heater because their building isn't well insulated enough in the winter, like we saw last weekend in that horrible tragedy in the Bronx. But every day, this is what happens in our country because our federal government is not doing enough to care for all people. During the pandemic, people have struggled to pay their bills and have seen higher costs from staying at home. This is a public health issue as well as a racial and economic justice issue. The average low-income household's energy burden is 3 times that of other households. And Black households have a median energy burden that is 43% higher than white households. We need to get serious about the importance of heating and cooling assistance at the federal level. Currently, the federal government's Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP, is underfunded, means-tested, and hard to apply for. For these reasons, only 19% of eligible households actually receive these funds. That's why I am proud to join with Senator Markey today to introduce the Heating and Cooling Relief Act, which will help end energy poverty across our country and transform our country's main energy assistance program. This legislation would expand federal funding for LIHEAP to $40 billion annually and universalize the program to ensure that anyone spending more than 3% of their income on energy bills or anyone experiencing poverty is eligible. In New York, the expanded eligibility population would increase from 2.2 million to over 6.5 million, providing support to more than 3/4 of the state's residents and ensuring every person, regardless of immigration status, this is key, regardless of immigration status, can receive assistance. It would also minimize barriers to receiving this assistance by allowing households to self-attest to meet eligibility requirements. This means less paperwork for already struggling, busy families. And this bill doesn't only provide relief for heating and cooling bills, but it also ensures consumers are protected in the process and that we transition away from fossil fuels, which is something we all want and we all need. Under this legislation, households can use funds to clear utility debt, and we protect them from late fees or utility shutoffs that too often leave people homeless. We are seeing increasing temperatures and extreme weather events because of climate change. We need to ensure our housing stock and our federal programs are adapting to climate change every chance we get. This bill increases the amount of funding for home weatherization for LIHEAP recipients, which will allow homeowners and landlords to make important repairs and home upgrades that decrease utility bill costs. In parts of my district, homes are extremely old, and this makes them poorly insulated. To reduce energy costs, we need to be insulating and repairing millions of homes and making sure everyone has access to renewable energy sources. This is about creating a government that works for the people and is rooted in care. And as Build Back Better stalls in the Senate and key programs like the child tax credit, which many families use to pay utilities, are ending, now is the moment to commit to ending energy poverty and giving people the support they deserve. The last thing I'll say is that energy assistance is only one piece of the energy jigsaw puzzle and the energy justice puzzle. We also need to get serious about holding utility companies accountable for corporate greed and move to a public and community-owned energy system. I'm excited to join with Senator Markey in making these visions a reality. Last weekend, we came together as a country to celebrate and honor the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And Dr. King called for the transition from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. I believe that if we center care, love, and safety for all people, including an energy policy, we will be well on our way to achieving this vision. With that, it is my honor and privilege and pleasure to introduce Senator Markey.
Thank you, Congressman Bowman. Thank you for your great work on this issue. It's an honor for me to work with you on this very important issue. I know we're joined by the great Mark Wolf, and we have a couple of special guests who will speak about their own individual situations. But good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I want to start by stating the obvious. Access to life-saving heating and cooling must be a basic human right. Yet across our country today, millions of families are preparing to enter the coldest winter months, unsure if they can afford their heating bills, and putting huge sums of their monthly income towards keeping their family warm when the sun goes down. We know who those families are. They are families in Chelsea and Lawrence and Brockton in Massachusetts. The same types of families are in New York and all across our country. And we know that they're Black and brown and Latino and low-income households. They are families where parents are working around the clock, multiple jobs just to make ends meet. And let me be clear, energy poverty is a racial justice issue. It's an economic justice issue. It's an environmental justice issue. And we must take steps today to remedy this injustice. A recent study found that Massachusetts residential customers owed a total of $675 million in unpaid electric and gas bills at the end of December of 2021. That's just the state of Massachusetts. $675 million in unpaid electric and gas bills. So we are looking at this as a result across the whole country, because we can see in Massachusetts that nearly 425,000 residential customers are now over 90 days behind on their electric and gas payments. We are teetering over a financial cliff that is forcing already vulnerable households to make the impossible decisions of either putting food on the table, covering rent, or keeping the heat on through the cold winter months. And to make matters worse, as climate change continues to accelerate, we are going to see more severe winter storms like the one we saw last February in Texas, and extreme prolonged heat waves like the one that covered the Pacific Northwest this past summer. There will be hurricanes, wildfires, and tornadoes that will affect energy prices in every region of the country in the coming months. The need for home energy assistance has never been more dire. The low-income home energy assistance program is a critical lifeline that helps millions of Americans and at least 160,000 Massachusetts residents keep their utilities on every single year. And while LIHEAP is undoubtedly a life-saving program, insufficient funding levels, outreach challenges, and other barriers prevent the program from reaching everyone who needs it. Currently, it is estimated that only 16% of households eligible for LIHEAP are actually served. This must change. And that is why today, Congressman Bowman and I are introducing the Heating and Cooling Relief Act of 2022 to expand and transform LIHEAP so that it works for every family and works for a climate-safe future. The critical legislation would invest $40 billion annually to fund and expand LIHEAP so that every family that needs help, every family that is eligible, is actually able to attain these life-saving benefits. It will help put an end to energy poverty for households across the country and support a just transition away from fossil fuel consumption by investing massively in weatherization efforts and promoting renewable energy usage. And while a record $307 million is on its way to Massachusetts through the American Rescue Plan, the Heating and Cooling Relief Act would provide an estimated $1.5 billion in LIHEAP funds for Massachusetts every single year. Enough funding to ensure that no household pays more than 3% of its annual income on energy costs. It would also make important changes to the LIHEAP program that would increase program eligibility, minimize barriers to administering and applying LIHEAP, and protecting consumers by ensuring no eligible household has its utilities shut off or pays late the huge fees that are imposed upon them. And importantly, this bill would provide families the funds to clear their utility debt. The bill also takes critical steps to make LIHEAP a more climate-friendly program ready for the 21st century impacts of our climate crisis, because in addition to increasing the proportion of LIHEAP funds that can go to weatherization, the Heating and Cooling Relief Act would create a new just transition grant for states and localities to help reduce energy burdens for LIHEAP eligible households and promote renewable energy usage. The Heating and Cooling Relief Act of 2022 is the kind of bold legislation we need to help to ensure the health and safety of American families and support a just transition away from fossil fuel consumption. Thanks to the great work of Representative Bowman and the wonderful advocates we're partnered with, we can end energy poverty once and for all. We can universalize LIHEAP for every family who needs it, and we can ensure every child across Massachusetts and the country has a warm place to sleep every single night of the year. So thank you all, and back to you, Congressman Bowman.
Thank you, Senator Markey, for those remarks and for your leadership. It's always a pleasure to work with your office, and I really look forward to continuing to collaborate with you on many just and people-centered pieces of legislation going forward. It is now my honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Don Brown, who is the Executive Director of the Yonkers Community Action Program. Shout out to Yonkers. I live in Yonkers. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for being here.
Thank you, Jamaal. Appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Don Brown. I am the Executive Director of the Yonkers Community Action Program. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Congressman Bowman for the opportunity to say a few words. I have been an advocate for the low-income community members for north of 20 years, 15 of which working with LIHEAP recipients. Although an excellent program, like others, it has its limitations, most notably the income requirements needed to qualify for assistance. Time and time again, I've had the unfortunate responsibility to tell a client they are over income and do not qualify. As you can imagine, that is heartbreaking news to anyone looking for assistance, yet alone someone who is barely making minimum wage. Based on the current climate and population we serve, we see the limitations that the means testing imposes on the client's ability to receive services. The increase in funding for this bill will allow us and similar nonprofits to qualify more clients, reduce debt, ease the burden of clients' mental health, and most importantly, relieve the stress of another debt collector knocking at your door during these already difficult times. We at Wildcat 100% support this bill and look forward to the day when anyone in need can be served without income limitations. Thank you for your time.
Great, and now I would like to introduce my friend and partner, Carmen Ortiz, the Outreach Coordinator for LIHEAP at Community Action Programs Intercity. Carmen.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Senator Markey, Congressman Bowman. Thank you for this opportunity today. My name is Carmen, and I am the Outreach and Administrative Coordinator here at CAPIC in Chelsea, Massachusetts. In my personal experience as a recipient of the benefits of the fuel assistance program, I was able to maintain my household of 3 children. And being a single mother with a one income household, with the assistance, I was able to maintain my household, and it gave me a sense of relief to be able to provide a warm home for my children in the long winter months. With the high cost of energy, families are forced to fall back on many of their expenses, rent, and mortgages to pay these heating bills. And I was given a chance to provide in other areas for my family that I otherwise would not have been able to. Now, as a team member working for the fuel assistance and weatherization programs, I've come across so many families like my own, working families with low income and hardships that have benefited from such programs that have been able to maintain their homes and keep healthy families, especially during COVID outbreaks. Senior citizens on fixed incomes with little to no other resources for their aid. Families of all different backgrounds looking for some aid in extremely difficult times just to maintain a basic need, their home. Homeowners that haven't been able to afford upgrading and weatherizing their homes to sustain their energy usage. This heating and cooling relief act will be so impactful in so many ways. It would save so many households and families, sustain their families from hardships, from homelessness, from so many losses in jobs and income. It would help in paying their water and sewer bills for homeowners. Many families would be spared from so many things as losing their homes, losing family members as well in these COVID outbreaks. So as a team member here at CAPIC, a lifetime member of this community and a recipient of these benefits, thank you for supporting this bill and making it come to light. It would make an incredible impact on saving energy costs and helping so many families in need like my own. Thank you for this opportunity today.
Thank you so much, Carmen, for sharing your personal experiences. Very powerful and very important, and that's exactly what people need to hear. It is now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Mark Wolf, the Executive Director of the National Energy Assistant Directors Association, to deliver remarks. Mr. Wolf, I think you're muted, sir.
Am I muted still?
Nope, good to go.
Okay. Well, thank you, Representative Bowman and Senator Markey. Words alone really can't explain how delighted I am about this bill. I worked with Senator Markey now for many, many years to try to get adequate funding for the Energy Assistance Program, and we're still stuck at only having enough money to reach about 18% of the eligible population. I'm delighted that Representative Bowman is here as well, joining the fight with us and leading the effort on this bill. I think it's terrific. What happens when people don't have enough money to pay the energy bill? Year after year, we do the same surveys, get the same responses. People cut back on food, they cut back on medicine, clothing, and other essentials. And why is that? Because energy goes to the front of the line. The utility sends you a note saying, or a letter saying they're going to shut you off from power because you can't pay your bill. You'll do everything you can to keep it on, because if you lose power, it's like being thrown back to the Middle Ages. You no longer can run your refrigerator, you can't cook your food, you can't even have access to the internet so your children can study. So that's why energy is so important. That's why energy often goes to the front of a line in terms of a person's concerns. We also know what happens when people cut back on their energy bill, especially in the summer now with these high heat waves. Sometimes people have heart attacks. We've also seen people die from excess heat. We also have it in the winter sometimes. So energy is essential, but we've never funded the low-income home energy assistance program adequately. And as Representative Bowman and Senator Markey said, it's still way too complicated to get help. So this bill will do a couple of things that are so important. One, it'll simplify, it'll make it much easier to get help. It'll set a reasonable standard. No family will pay more than 3% of their income for energy. That's the same as all other families in the country. Non-low-income families, energy is just not that expensive for them. For low-income families, it's higher because they just don't have as much money. And every family has to do basic energy needs. You have to have a furnace, you have to have a stove. Just because you're better off doesn't mean you have 5 stoves, you still have 1 stove. So for low-income families, the burden of having access to adequate energy is much higher. The other couple things that I would do that I think are really important in terms of the transition as we move to a clean energy economy, the bill will provide enough money so states have the flexibility to weatherize up to 1 million units a year of low-income housing. That's huge. Right now, the weatherization program that we have is poorly funded as well. It's only enough money to fund about 40,000 units a year. And at the current rate, it could take 100 years to weatherize the low-income housing stock. This bill would move that forward significantly, make a real dent, helping make energy not just more affordable for families, but make their houses more energy efficient. The other piece that I would do is help reduce the energy burden on families and address arrearages. That's the amount families owe to their utilities. The numbers have gone up significantly since the pandemic, almost doubled, in fact. And it's of great concern, especially this winter, for 2 reasons. One, it's an expensive year. Looks like the cost of home energy is going to be 30% more than last year. And then one of the major supports that helped families pay their energy bills last year, the child tax credit, has ended or at least stalled because it can't get through the Senate. And what we found from the surveys is that low-income families are using their child tax credit to pay their energy bill. So again, it shows just how important and significant the cost of energy is to lower-income families. The other thing we know is about what families owe. Senator Markey referred to how much is owed in Massachusetts. Well, in New York, it's over $1 billion. In California, it's over $1 billion. It's 114 million in Georgia. So what that means is this money has to be paid back unless there's some other way to cover it. We know what happens. Families have to enter into onerous repayment plans or face the possibility of shut off of power. And that's what we're facing because there isn't adequate funding. And this bill would make a huge difference in doing this. The Heating and Cooling Relief Act would put a floor on how much money families pay for energy, also provide enough money so you wouldn't have to have this constant struggle of only 18% of the eligible population being helped, to have enough money to help all eligible households. So to wrap up my comments, passing this bill will be a major step in taking a difficult burden off the backs of millions of low and moderate income families. Hopefully Congress will pass this bill and then we'll find the funds to pay it. It's long overdue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wolf, for those comments. We will now open it up to questions. We'll take just a couple as I have to go vote as soon as possible. So let's take a couple of questions.
Great. We'll start with Brian Dabbs. Brian, you should be unmuted, people. Perfect.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for doing the call. Really appreciate it very much. So, there's some similar relief measures, although, not in the entirety as I gather at first blush, that's in this bill, but there are some similar relief measures in the Build Back Better package, specifically kind of the homes rebates, the homes being an acronym. I'm just wondering if Democrats are now willing to trim down the BBB to focus on climate provisions and utility relief. And in that event, I mean, is that how you see kind of this bill passing? This Lahey bill specifically.
I'm sorry, are you saying, is this in substitution for all the funding that's in the Build Back Better bill?
No, I'm sorry. I'm just saying, is there a way, are you interested in trimming down Build Back Better and moving forward with climate provisions in another format? And if that is the case, then can you add this bill, this Lahey bill, to that new kind of BBB iteration? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand your question. Joe Manchin said a couple of weeks ago that he felt that the climate and energy provisions were the easiest to reach agreement upon in the Build Back Better bill. So my feeling is we should use those climate provisions then as the foundation for an agreement with Senator Manchin, and then build in all of the other provisions that Senator Manchin and Kirsten Sinema say that they can support, so that we can put that package together to do it in conjunction with the House, and then to make that the package. The climate funding, pre-K, senior care, all of those provisions that on which we can reach agreement, and to keep that funding inside of the Build Back Better bill. This would be a separate initiative, an initiative to make sure that we do specifically target on an ongoing basis all of those poor people in the country who face these energy bills, especially as the prices have gone up 30% this winter, and so many millions of families, while they qualify, are not eligible. So we want to just increase the funding, and we can do that through another vehicle as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Great. We'll bring in Ari from Bloomberg.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I have a similar question. With Biden kind of opening the door to a slimmed down Build Back Better Act package, that includes all that climate spending, is that something that you can support, even if it jettisons other progressive priorities like the child tax credit?
So I'll start. Absolutely not. We are not interested in a slimmed down Build Back Better package, especially as we talk about the issue of climate. Just recently in my district, after Hurricane Ida destroyed parts of the Gulf Coast, it came up to New York and New Jersey, killed over 30 people and destroyed property and created damages in the area of $100 million in repairs. So no, those storms are going to be more consistent and more frequent, and we need to invest as much as possible in mitigating what's happening with climate change, so that those storms aren't as frequent as they can be, but also creating a new climate economy that is a part of the Build Back Better package. So no, we're not interested in that. Again, this bill is in support of that and is designed to help us move towards a renewable economy, ending our dependency on fossil fuels, making sure people who are struggling with energy poverty aren't paying more than 3% of their income towards energy and utilities. And we're moving towards a country of public power and public control of utilities. So no, we don't want to slim anything down. We want to ratchet it up, and this is part of the ratcheting up of it.
Hang on, can I just ask a follow-up? It sounds like the direction they're moving toward would be a Build Back Better Act that keeps the majority of the climate spending. That sounds like it's already been largely agreed to, but it would jettison other progressive priorities. Would you be okay with that approach, or no slim down Build Back Better Act at all?
Well, again, the president said he's going to be fighting for over $500 billion in climate-related spending. That's what's in the Build Back Better bill. And from my perspective, I want to make sure that we do pass something this year. We have to get everything that is possible into that bill. As you know, I wanted twice as much money as is inside of the Build Back Better bill. That was my original position. So use climate as the foundation, keep adding on all the other provisions that we can agree to. But I do think it is imperative that we have a bill that ultimately is put on President Biden's desk this year. So there's a real opportunity here for us to make real progress. And I know that Congressman Bowman and we're going to fight as hard as we can to make sure this package is as big as is possible.
Can I just ask Congressman Bowman to clarify his response? I wasn't sure if he understood my question.
So no, we do not want to slim down Build Back Better in any way. We know negotiations are happening, and we understand the negotiation process. So we may not get everything that's in it right now, but as we sit here today, no, we do not want to slim it down in any way.
Thank you, sir.
Great. And our last question will be with Alex Kaufman.
Hey there. Thanks for doing this. I wanted to ask whether I didn't see anything in the bill text and when I did a cursory scan, but, I was curious whether you guys have a view generally on the rise of prepaid utilities as a policy to address payment issues and energy poverty issues, and whether this bill would address anything on that, and whether there's a general approach that you think is appropriate to dealing with that as more states, largely at the behest of utilities, adopt that as a payment method for people that are struggling.
So our bill includes an expectation that utility companies implement reduced payment plans to prevent price gouging. So there is some component of that in there. Yes, very good question. Senator?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And again, we want to create as much flexibility as we can in order to make it easy for the families to be able to make it through a winter with predictability and funding, which the family knows and the utility knows is going to be there.
Yep.
Got it. So I just wanted to clarify, that what I'm asking about is like that very specifically in some states, it is more states are legalizing it where, utilities can offer people who are struggling plan that, basically to get out of debt, they have to agree to a prepaid program that would work similar to a prepaid phone, where as soon as the money on the account runs out, in essence, there is a shut off. It kind of eliminates some of those grace periods. And so, I think that there's debate on either side of those things. And I'm curious, is that, when you say that, increased flexibility is important, is that an option for increased flexibility that you support and want to see increased?
No, our goal is to make sure that no one is ever shut off at any time. Okay, it is absolutely a moral, just result that this bill is intended to achieve, and that will be ultimately what our goal is, that no one is ever shut off at any time. The funding will be there for them.
And as long as that prepaid program doesn't cross the 3% threshold, which is another key piece in our bill, that's the key here. Programs like that generally have high costs associated with them, and that's something we're trying to avoid. So as long as they don't cross the 3% threshold, that's what we're targeting and what we're trying to go for here.
Got it.
No shutoffs.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Congressman Bowman's right. Prepaid meters are harmful. They shut people off from power. They take away their rights. On paper, they might look like an incentive, but it just puts even more pressure on poor families and gets in the way of the kind of protections that are in this bill.
Sorry, everyone, I got to jump. Can we make that the last question? So sorry. And please send us any follow-up. I got to go vote. My apologies.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Senator. Peace and love, everyone. Be well.
Same to you.
Thank you. Have a good day.